Far below the reach of sunlight, deeper than the twilight zone of the ocean, lies a realm where survival itself seems almost impossible. A place starved of oxygen. A place where movement is slow and death is patient. And yet, something lives here. Not just survives, but thrives. A creature with a name that sounds like it belongs in nightmares. The vampire squid. At first glance, it appears to be a relic of horror, dark red skin stretched between 8 arms, glowing eyes that pierce the darkness, and a cloak-like webbing that unfurls like something ancient, something theatrical, something almost supernatural. For decades, scientists believed this animal was a predator. After all, it looks like one. Its very name, Vampirotuthis infernalis, literally means vampire squid from hell. But the truth is far stranger, because everything we thought we knew about how creatures survive in the deep ocean seems to break down here. And the vampire squid is the reason why. To understand the mystery, we must descend beyond the reach of sunlight, beyond the realm of coral reefs and hunting sharks, into what scientists call the oxygen minimum zone. This is not just deep ocean, it is a biological dead zone. Oxygen levels here are so low that most animals simply cannot function. Muscles fail. Metabolism collapses. Movement becomes impossible. For most life, entering this zone is a death sentence. And yet, the vampire squid spends its entire life here. Not briefly, not occasionally, permanently. It drifts in this suffocating darkness, at depths between 600 and 900 meters, where oxygen can drop to less than 3% of surface levels. In these conditions, even the most efficient predators, fish, squid, crustaceans, struggle to survive. So how does the vampire squid do it? That question has puzzled scientists for decades. Because, biologically speaking, it shouldn't be able to. At first, researchers assumed the vampire squid must be an aggressive hunter. After all, its anatomy suggests it. It has large, forward-facing eyes, ideal for spotting prey in darkness. Its arms are lined with spines, once thought to be tools for capturing struggling animals. And its webbed cloak, called the cloak membrane, can envelop its body, creating a dramatic defensive display. Everything about it suggests speed, precision, predation. But when scientists began observing it more closely, something didn't add up. The vampire squid didn't chase prey. It didn't ambush. It didn't even move much at all. Instead, it drifted. Slowly. Almost passively. As if conserving every possible unit of energy. Because here, in the oxygen minimum zone, energy is everything. Every movement costs oxygen. Every burst of speed could be fatal. And the vampire squid appears to have made a radical evolutionary decision to give up the hunt entirely. This is where the confusion begins. Because if it doesn't hunt, then what does it eat? The answer, discovered only in recent decades, is almost absurdly simple. Marine snow. Not actual snow, but a constant rain of organic debris drifting down from above. Tiny particles of dead plankton, microscopic organisms, fecal matter, and decaying tissue. In most parts of the ocean, marine snow is just background noise. But here, in the deep, oxygen-poor abyss, it is a lifeline. And the vampire squid has evolved into something no one expected. A collector. Instead of chasing prey, the vampire squid extends 2 long, delicate filaments, structures so thin they were once mistaken for sensory organs. But they are not just sensors. They are tools. With these filaments, the squid gently gathers drifting particles from the water. It doesn't rush. It doesn't strike. It simply waits and collects. Once enough material is gathered, it uses its arms to wrap the particles into a small ball of food coated in mucus. Then slowly, deliberately consumes it. No violence. No struggle. No chase. In one of the harshest environments on Earth, this creature survives by doing almost nothing at all. This strategy is so unusual that it forced scientists to rethink a fundamental assumption, that deep-sea survival depends on predation. Because here is a creature that has abandoned that model entirely. Instead of competing for scarce prey, it feeds on what others ignore. Instead of expending energy in pursuit, it minimizes energy use to near zero. And this brings us to one of the most extraordinary features of the vampire squid, its metabolism. Compared to other cephalopods, like octopuses and squids, the vampire squid operates at an incredibly low metabolic rate. Most squid are fast, aggressive, high-energy hunters. They rely on bursts of speed, powerful jet propulsion, and rapid responses. The vampire squid does none of this. Its metabolism is closer to that of a jellyfish than a typical squid. It uses minimal oxygen. It moves slowly. It rarely engages in rapid activity. Even its blood is different. Unlike many marine animals, the vampire squid's blood contains a highly efficient form of hemocyanin, a molecule that binds oxygen far more effectively at low concentrations. This allows it to extract oxygen from water that would suffocate most other species. In essence, it has re-engineered its entire physiology around scarcity. But survival in the deep sea is not just about oxygen. It's also about avoiding becoming food. And here, the vampire squid reveals another layer of its mystery. Because while it does not hunt, it is still hunted. Deep-sea fish, larger squid, and other predators roam these depths. And with so little energy available, escaping an attack is incredibly risky. So the vampire squid has evolved a defense unlike anything else in the ocean. When threatened, it performs what scientists call the pineapple posture. Its arms invert, folding back over its body, exposing rows of sharp, spine-like structures called cirri. Its body transforms into something unrecognizable. Something spiked. Something alien. Something dangerous-looking. But this is just a bluff. Because those spines are not weapons. They are soft, harmless. A visual illusion designed to confuse predators in the darkness. And if that fails, the vampire squid has one final trick. Instead of releasing ink like other squid, it releases light. A cloud of bioluminescent particles, glowing mucus that drifts through the water like a shimmering nebula. In the pitch-black depths, this is disorienting, blinding. It creates a glowing distraction, allowing the squid to slowly drift away while the predator is left staring into a cloud of fading light. It is not an escape based on speed. It is an escape based on confusion. Everything about the vampire squid seems to contradict what we expect from a cephalopod. It doesn't hunt. It barely moves. It feeds on debris. It defends itself with illusion. And yet, it works. It has survived for millions of years. Unchanged. Unchallenged. Existing quietly in one of the most extreme environments on Earth. But perhaps the most unsettling part of this story is what it suggests about evolution itself. Because the vampire squid is not just unusual. It is unique. It belongs to its own order, separate from both squid and octopuses. A living fossil, representing an ancient lineage that diverged over 300 million years ago. Long before the age of dinosaurs. Long before modern oceans took shape. It is a survivor from a different world. And its strategy may be a glimpse into a completely different way of living. Yet, despite everything we've learned, questions remain. Why did it abandon predation entirely? How did such an energy-efficient system evolve in the first place? And perhaps most puzzling of all, are there others like it, hidden in the depths, surviving in ways we have yet to imagine? Because the deep ocean is vast, largely unexplored, and the vampire squid may not be an exception, but a clue, a sign that life, under the right conditions, doesn't just adapt. It reinvents the rules entirely. In the darkness of the deep ocean, survival is usually a race for food, a race for oxygen, a race against time itself. But the vampire squid has stepped out of that race entirely. And in doing so, it may have unlocked one of the most efficient survival strategies ever discovered. To understand just how unusual this is, scientists began comparing the vampire squid to its closest relatives. Modern cephalopods, like octopuses and true squids, are among the most intelligent and active invertebrates on Earth. They solve problems. They hunt with precision. They burn energy at extraordinary rates. Their entire biology is built around action. But the vampire squid has taken the opposite path. It has slowed everything down. Its muscles are weaker. Its movements are softer. Even its nervous system appears tuned for conservation rather than speed. And this raises an extraordinary possibility. What if evolution didn't just shape the vampire squid to survive the deep ocean? What if it simplified it? In most environments, complexity is an advantage. Faster reflexes, sharper senses, stronger muscles. But in the oxygen minimum zone, complexity can become a liability. Because every improvement comes at a cost. More energy, more oxygen, more risk. The vampire squid seems to have done something radical. It reduced itself to only what is necessary. Nothing more. This idea has fascinated evolutionary biologists because it challenges a long-standing assumption that evolution always drives organisms toward greater complexity. Instead, the vampire squid suggests something else. That under extreme conditions, survival may favor less movement, less energy, less competition, and perhaps even less ambition. But evolution is never static. And to truly understand how the vampire squid arrived at this strategy, scientists turned to its past. Fossil evidence reveals that ancient relatives of the vampire squid lived in a very different ocean. An ocean richer in oxygen. An ocean filled with competition. Back then, these early cephalopods were likely far more active. More like the squids we know today. But as Earth's climate shifted and oxygen levels in certain regions dropped, a new kind of environment emerged. The oxygen minimum zones expanded, becoming vast, low-oxygen refuges where most predators could not survive. And for a creature willing to adapt, this was an opportunity. Over millions of years, the ancestors of the vampire squid appear to have retreated into these zones. Not as a last resort, but as a strategy. A way to escape competition entirely, because in a place where few animals can survive, there are fewer threats, fewer rivals, and a constant rain of organic material drifting down from above. An untapped resource. This shift would have triggered a cascade of evolutionary changes. Active hunting became unnecessary. Speed became wasteful. Aggression became irrelevant. Instead, traits that favored efficiency began to dominate. Better oxygen extraction, lower metabolic demand, gentler movement, until eventually the creature we see today emerged, a cephalopod that doesn't behave like one. But even this explanation leaves gaps. Because the vampire squid's adaptations are not just efficient, they are extreme. For example, its ability to survive in near-anoxic conditions, where oxygen levels are barely measurable, is almost unheard of for an animal of its size. Most organisms in such environments are microscopic. Bacteria. Simple life forms. Yet here is a relatively complex animal, operating in conditions that should push it to its limits. And still it endures. This has led scientists to ask a deeper question. Is the vampire squid truly thriving? Or merely surviving at the edge of possibility? Because there is a difference. Thriving implies success, reproduction, stability. But surviving suggests a delicate balance. A life lived on the brink. Reproduction, in particular, remains one of the least understood aspects of the vampire squid's biology. Encounters are rare. Observations are limited. But what scientists have discovered only adds to the mystery. Unlike many cephalopods, which reproduce once and die shortly after, the vampire squid appears capable of multiple reproductive cycles. A strategy known as iteroparity. This is unusual for its group. And it suggests something important. A slower life. A longer lifespan. A creature that does not rush toward reproduction, but spreads it out over time. Conserving energy, even in the act of continuing its species. Egg production is also minimal. Rather than producing large numbers of offspring, the vampire squid invests in fewer eggs, each one carefully developed. Again, a strategy that prioritizes efficiency over abundance. In an environment where resources are scarce, this may be the only viable approach. But it also raises another question. How many vampire squids are there, really? Estimating their population is nearly impossible. They live in depths that are difficult to access. They move slowly and often avoid detection. And their lifestyle leaves little trace. No hunting grounds. No territorial behavior. No visible impact on their surroundings. They exist quietly, almost invisibly. Yet, despite this, they play a role in the deep-sea ecosystem that is only now beginning to be understood. By feeding on marine snow, the vampire squid helps recycle organic material. It takes what would otherwise drift endlessly into the abyss and converts it into energy. In doing so, it becomes part of a larger cycle, a bridge between the surface world and the deep. And it is not alone in this. Other deep-sea organisms also rely on marine snow. But the vampire squid's efficiency sets it apart. It wastes almost nothing, consumes almost everything it collects, and in turn, becomes prey for larger animals that venture into these depths. It is both consumer and resource, a quiet participant in a vast, unseen network. But perhaps the most intriguing aspect of the vampire squid is what it reveals about the limits of life. Because its existence challenges our understanding of what is possible, not just in Earth's oceans, but beyond them. Scientists studying extreme environments often look to the deep sea as an analog for extraterrestrial life. Places like the subsurface oceans of Europa or Enceladus. Worlds where sunlight never reaches, where energy is scarce, where oxygen, if present at all, is limited. In these environments, life, if it exists, would need to be efficient, patient, adapted to scarcity. In many ways, the vampire squid fits that description perfectly. A creature that survives not through, but through restraint. Not through dominance, but through balance. It is not the strongest, not the fastest, not the most aggressive.